Welcome to A Journey in Song. We explore the experiences Manda writes about in an attempt at self-healing through creating as a South African author, poet, lyricist, and storyteller. So, what if the human brain actually doesn't know the difference between a broken heart and a literal physical attack?
Well, the short answer is it doesn't.
Right. Today, for this deep dive, we are looking at a text that proves grief isn't just an emotion, it is a biological glitch. We're exploring the lyrics to a piece called My Monster, and the psychological catalyst that birthed this text is incredibly heavy.
Yeah, it really is.
Manda loves someone deeply, but she lost him to death. The complicated layer here, though, the real friction for you as a listener to understand, is that the man she loved saw himself as a monster. He believed he was completely unlovable, but Manda did not.
And that context is absolutely crucial. Because today, we aren't just reading poetry. We're looking at this song as a literal survival mechanism. We are going to examine what grief does to the body, how it rewires the architecture of the brain, and how Mandy uses these specific lyrics to actively fight back against a world that called the man she loved a monster. This is a rigorous look at how storytelling becomes a cognitive tool to endure what is, fundamentally, unendurable.
I mean, let's start with that physical reality, because grief is almost always portrayed culturally as, like, crying in a dark room. It's treated as a mood.
Right, like a persistent sadness.
Yeah, but Manda uses words like tugging, wringing, ripping, and clawing. She writes about him being in her mind today, tugging at my heartstrings, running out my tears, ripping and clawing at the memories of my fears. Those are violent kinetic verbs. It doesn't sound like sadness. It sounds like an assault.
It sounds like an assault because, biologically speaking, that is exactly what the body's experiencing. We really have to look at grief through a neurosomatic lens here.
Okay, so what does that actually mean for the body?
Well, the human nervous system maps our closest attachment figures. So our partners, our deepest loves, not just as social contacts, but as core components of our biological regulation.
Wait, you mean they literally regulate our physical systems?
Yes, exactly. They regulate your heart rate, your breathing, your sleep cycles. So when you lose an attachment figure, your autonomic nervous system does not react to their absence as a sad event. It reacts to it as a literal physical threat to your survival.
Wow. So it's treating the loss of a person the same way it would treat, say, being hunted by a predator in the wild.
Precisely. Your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, starts firing rapidly. It floods the body with cortisol and adrenaline. Your blood pressure spikes. Your digestion might even shut down completely.
That explains so much.
Right. When people say they feel a constant dropping sensation in their stomach, or that their chest actually aches, that is somatic dysregulation. So the sensation of being ripped and clawed that Manda describes isn't some poetic metaphor for a bad mood. It is a highly accurate clinical description of a nervous system in severe distress.
It makes me think of a phantom limb. When someone loses an arm, the brain doesn't just quietly update its map and move on.
No, it definitely doesn't.
It keeps sending electrical signals down those old neural pathways to a hand that is no longer there. And because the signal has nowhere to go, it doesn't result in numbness. It results in blinding, visceral pain. The brain is basically firing into a void.
That's a perfect analogy.
But if that's the mechanism, I have to ask you, if our brains are evolutionarily wired to protect us and keep us functioning, why paralyze us with this intense physical pain just from processing a memory?
If we look at evolutionary biology, the pain isn't a flaw. The pain is the entire point.
Really? How does that help us survive?
Well, we are a deeply social species. For hundreds of thousands of years, an isolated human was a dead human. Our survival depended entirely on our tribe and our pair bonds. So the pain of separation is a neurological alarm bell. It's designed to be so unbearable that it forces you to go find your missing person.
Ah, I see. The pain is meant to motivate a reunion.
Right. The problem, though, is that the primitive survival-oriented areas of our brain do not immediately comprehend the permanence of death.
So the alarm just keeps ringing, demanding you find someone who cannot be found.
Yes. The ripping and clawing is the immense biological friction between the imperative to reconnect and the objective reality that reconnection is impossible.
But that physical alarm bell has to run into a wall eventually, right? The body is screaming, "Go find him!" but the higher brain knows he's gone. What happens when those two systems crash into each other?
It creates a massive cognitive glitch.
Which Manda captures perfectly. She writes, "It's too late, the whispers sound. It will never be, not now, not ever, but he is yours forever and never." That phrase, forever and never, it feels like a paradox that would just break a computer.
It is the ultimate expression of cognitive dissonance. In neuroscience, there's a concept called predictive processing. Your brain is essentially a prediction machine.
Meaning it's always guessing what's going to happen next.
Exactly. It doesn't passively experience the world. It actively hallucinates the world based on deeply ingrained neural maps, and then it corrects those hallucinations using sensory data.
Okay.
So Amanda's neural pathways hold this man forever. Her implicit memory, which is the unconscious memory that governs habits and expectations, assumes his existence. Her brain predicts he will walk through the door at 5 p.m. because he walked through the door at 5 p.m. every day for years.
So her biology is essentially predicting a future that reality refuses to deliver.
Yes. Her brain expects him, but reality dictates he is never coming back. The whispers she mentions represent the intrusive logic of reality fighting against the brain's emotional attachment maps.
It's like the logical brain having to break the bad news over and over again.
Precisely. The prefrontal cortex, the logical executive part of the brain, has to constantly whisper the grim truth down to the emotional centers that are still waiting for him.
You know, I want to challenge a cultural cliche here based on what you're saying. We constantly tell grieving people that time heals all wounds. We treat time like it's this passive, soothing medicine.
Which is incredibly misleading.
Right. Because if the brain is constantly predicting his presence and reality is constantly proving his absence, time doesn't sound healing at all. It sounds hostile. Does the realization of never actually traumatize the brain all over again every single time it surfaces?
That is the exact mechanism at play. Neurologically, time alone does not heal. In fact, the passage of time initially compounds the exhaustion. This relates to memory reconsolidation.
What's that?
Let's break down how memory actually works. When you pull up a deeply held memory, you aren't just opening a file on a computer to read it. The act of remembering chemically destabilizes the memory. It becomes malleable. You are literally rewriting it.
Oh, wow. So every time she remembers him, the brain opens the file, but it also has to attach the new data that he is gone.
Exactly. The brain encounters a massive prediction error. It pulls up the warm, loving memory, but then the prefrontal cortex injects the reality he is dead. The brain has to simultaneously process the love and the absolute absence of the person.
That sounds exhausting.
It's a repetitive microtrauma. The brain has to repeatedly learn over and over that never is the new reality. So no, time isn't a passive balm. Processing this requires exhausting, active cognitive labor.
That makes the next part of the lyrics even more gut-wrenching, I think. Because she isn't just processing the grief of losing a standard partner, she's processing the grief of losing someone the world fundamentally misunderstood.
Right, the monster label.
Yeah, we move from this internal cognitive glitch into a very harsh external reality, his identity. There is an anguished, repetitive stanza where she writes, "He is your monster, cold and dead, fate decreed and said. He was mine, screamed I, mine, only mine. How dare he be dead, and I so dreadfully alive."
This brings us right to the core of the psychological catalyst we talked about earlier. The world, and perhaps crucially the man himself, viewed him as a monster. But Manda defiantly claims him. "Mine," screamed I.
It's so powerful.
It transcends normal grief processing. This is a profound act of psychological rebellion against fate and against the consensus of society.
It's such a striking image. But by calling him her monster, is she accepting his dark side, or is she throwing fate's cruel label back in its face to prove that love outlasts judgment?
It's a mechanism we call radical acceptance. By saying "your monster," when speaking of fate's decree, but then fiercely countering with "he was mine," she is neutralizing the toxicity of the label.
She's stripping the word of its power.
Exactly. She isn't necessarily validating his darkness. She is accepting his shadow self, the parts of him he despised, while completely rejecting the idea that those parts made him unlovable. She is holding the complexity of his humanity. But we also have to look at the end of that stanza. So dreadfully alive.
Yes. How dare he be dead, and I so dreadfully alive? I mean, being alive shouldn't feel dreadful, right? It's survival.
Not to the traumatized brain. That line perfectly captures severe survivor's guilt mechanistically. Remember what we said earlier, the autonomic nervous system views the partner as a biological requirement for survival.
Right?
So when that biological pair bond is severed, the surviving partner often experiences their own continued heartbeat as a betrayal. Because the physiological framework that gave existence its safety and meaning is gone, being alive without them isn't experienced as a gift. It feels dreadful.
Yeah.
Existing becomes an agonizing chore.
Which begs the question, why fight so hard for someone who saw themselves as a monster? If existence without him is this dreadful chore, what was it about him that made life beautiful?
She actually tells us.
Yeah, she gives us the answer by shifting our attention away from the monster label and into the actual reality they shared. She writes, "With his beautiful thoughts all entwined with mine, we spoke and dreamed, created and ran in a world we made of make-believe, temporarily divine."
This is a beautiful illustration of meaning-making. In psychological terms, Mandy is describing the creation of a two-person sanctuary.
A two-person sanctuary. I like that.
Yeah, in a chaotic, judgmental world that readily applied the monster label, these two individuals constructed a micro-society, a private, shared reality built on mutual creativity and acceptance where they spoke and dreamed.
It makes me think of an encrypted network, a closed digital loop where the only two authorized users are Manda and this man.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. So the data from the outside world, the judgment, the monster label, the cruelty, it literally cannot process on their network. It bounces off the firewall. Inside that encrypted space, he isn't a monster. He is a source of beautiful thoughts.
That is an incredibly accurate way to model it. Inside that sanctuary, the external rules did not apply. And this explains the severity of her grief.
Because the network went down.
Yes. When you lose a partner in a highly attuned dynamic like this, you aren't just mourning the physical loss of a human being. You are mourning the total, irreversible destruction of that encrypted network. The server goes down, and the entire world you built together is deleted.
The tragedy there is just suffocating. She writes about this vanished world being buried now forever and bright no more, to bring to me his creations and lore, the lore. Every inside joke, every shared dream, every shorthand glance that only the two of them understood, it's all gone. She is left standing in the ashes, holding a key to a door that doesn't even exist anymore.
And we must push that concept one step further into identity formation. Our identities are not static islands. They are largely formed in relation to others.
Okay, so who she was with him is gone too.
Exactly. The specific version of Manda that existed inside that temporarily divine world of make-believe, the Manda who interacted with his beautiful thoughts, literally cannot exist without him. So she is grieving his death, yes, but she is also grieving the death of the specific version of herself that lived inside that sanctuary.
Man. So her body is physically screaming for a lost bond. Her brain is continually re-traumatizing itself, trying to rewrite its reality maps. And the specific identity she held in that relationship has been deleted. How do you even survive that?
It's incredibly difficult.
The song gives us a look at the survival strategy, but it isn't a clean resolution. It ends in a loop. She repeats, "I miss him so. It's too late, the whispers sound. It will never be, not now, not ever, but he is yours forever and never. He was yours for nevermore."
It loops because acceptance in a clinical, real-world sense is not a destination. You do not just process profound grief and arrive at a tidy finish line.
There's no certificate of completion.
No. Not at all. It is a repetitive, grueling cycle. Her lyrics purposefully loop back to the painful whispers of finality because, as we discussed with memory reconsolidation, the brain will continually cycle through prediction error and reality testing.
Wait, but if her brain is trapped in this exhausting reconsolidation loop, isn't writing a repetitive song just making it worse? Why dwell on the loop and carve it into stone as a lyric? Doesn't that just trap her in the trauma?
It actually does the exact opposite. By writing this song, she is externalizing the loop.
Externalizing it?
Yes. When the trauma is trapped purely inside the mind, it is chaotic, dysregulated, and overwhelming. By taking the internal chaos of neurological trauma and mapping it onto an external, structured artistic medium like poetry or a song, she is exercising executive control over a dysregulated nervous system.
Ah, I see. So she's forcing the chaos into a container.
Precisely. By structuring her grief into stanzas, organizing it into rhythm, and giving it a narrative flow, she is forcing the biological glitch to make a kind of sense. It's agonizing sense, yes, but it is structured.
It's something she can control.
Exactly. Storytelling and lyricism become an active somatic and cognitive tool. It is a brilliant strategy for using art to endure the unendurable.
And for you listening, this is exactly why we do these deep dives. This isn't just an academic breakdown of abstract concepts. This is a real person leading her truth into art simply to survive the mechanics of her own brain. And that brings us to your role in this.
Yeah, the listener's role is actually vital here. Because when a creative person externalizes a trauma loop like this, engaging with that art isn't just passive entertainment. It is an act of communal validation. You are helping to witness the sanctuary she's trying to rebuild. So I strongly encourage you to support Manda's healing and her incredible artistry directly. Go to YouTube and search for music by Manda Menzies. That's Menzies. Listen to the work, like, share, and subscribe. It really is the ultimate validation of a profound survival strategy. By listening, you confirm that the encrypted network they built had value. Today, we've broken down how Manda's lyrics operate on multiple biological and psychological levels. We explored the visceral somatic pain of a nervous system fighting the reality of loss. We examine the intense cognitive dissonance, those exhausting micro-traumas of a brain trapped between predictive processing and the absolute permanence of never.
And we witnessed how she completely defies the world's judgment. She reclaims a man deemed a monster by society, neutralizing that darkness by focusing purely on the private, temporary, divine reality they built together. It is a phenomenal testament to the human spirit's ability to forge structure and meaning out of absolute devastation.
She navigates the impossible glitch of grief not by solving it, but by structuring it, externalizing it, and refusing to let the world's narrative override her own authentic experience of love.
Which leaves us with something I want you to really turn over in your mind long after this audio stops. When we fiercely love someone who sees themselves as completely unlovable when society in their own mind labels them a monster, does their love actually outlive their self-hatred? And when they are gone, does carrying their memory and sharing their beautiful thoughts with the world become the ultimate act of rebellion against the darkness they saw in themselves? Keep diving deep.